The doorbell rings. You look through the peephole. You see police uniforms, 2, maybe 3 police officers standing at the door. Calm, official, authoritative. You open the door, and that's when everything falls apart, and your day turns into a nightmare. Welcome back to Fraud Files. My name is Emily, and I'm the interviewer on this podcast, which brings you real-life case files and forensic insights into a number of white-collar frauds, financial crimes, and scams that your host Edward has personally encountered and in some cases brought to light during his financial, corporate, and business career. He shines the spotlight on both the frauds and the perpetrators. So, Edward, it's over to you.
Picture a family, comfortable, successful, well-known in their community. The father had built a very good business over many years. They were the kind of family where hard work had paid off, and it showed. A beautiful home in a really nice neighborhood. The trappings of a life well lived. And with that visibility comes something else, something less welcome, unfortunately. You can become a target.
Let the story begin.
So it was a weekend, a quiet day, when a family might be at home together, relaxing. The parents were in, and one of their children, an older teenager, was around the house. Another child, the younger son, had gone out earlier in the day. He was off playing football with friends. For the family, it was just a normal Saturday. The kind of day, nothing much happens. Time for recreation and relaxation. Until the doorbell rang. The mother went to check. And in a house like that, you'd check carefully because that's just how it was. She saw police outside, uniformed police officers, standing there, calm and official, the way police do. Nothing that raised an immediate alarm. Nothing that said, "Don't open the door." So she opened it. And the moment she did, the men pushed their way in. They weren't police. No, they never were police. The uniforms were a costume, a prop, a carefully chosen tool designed to do one thing, to make a family open a door that they would never otherwise have opened, designed to create a sense of trust.
So this appears to be a targeted domestic robbery?
Well, this was not a random crime of opportunity. These men had done their homework. They knew the family. They knew the house. They knew almost certainly what was inside. The safe, the jewelry, the cash, the valuables, the antiques accumulated over a lifetime of success. This was planned, targeted, and the disguise was the key that unlocked the whole operation. Once inside, they moved fast. The family, the parents, the older teenager were corralled, threatened, restrained. Guns were produced. The kind of fear that language struggles to capture took hold of the house. They wanted the safe. They wanted the jewelry. They wanted everything of value they could carry and put into the waiting van on the road. And then, partway through, the door opened again. The front door. The other son, the one who'd been out playing football, came home. He had let himself in with his key, the way you do when you live somewhere familiar. Walked into a scene that must have taken several seconds to even process. A gun was immediately put to his head. He was tied up with the rest of the family, threatened.
So I guess the intruders, the armed robbers, demanded to know the code for the safe, demanded to know where the cash and valuables were in the house, the family, the elderly father, the mother, and the 2 sons, guns in their faces, not knowing what fate would befall them, terrified, out of their wits.
At some point, and I imagine every minute felt like an hour, the men decided they had what they came for. They issued an instruction. Nobody moves for 30 minutes. And then they were gone, into a getaway van, into the anonymity of wherever people like that disappear to.
My word, what a terrible ordeal for the family. Tell us, Edward, what was your personal connection to the family?
I knew this family. I grew up around them. I was in that house as a teenager, around those kids, in those rooms, playing football with the youngest son. And when I think about what happened to them that day, it stays with me. Not just the violence of it, but the particular cruelty of the method. The family opened the door because they trusted the uniform, because we are conditioned from childhood to trust the police. That trust, that instinct, was the weapon used against them. When the real police eventually arrived, because of course once the men were gone, then you call the police, there wasn't much to work with. The perpetrators were never caught. The jewelry, the cash, the antiques, the valuables gone, never recovered. But the thing that was really taken from their family that day wasn't in any safe.
How does a family ever recover from a dreadful experience like that?
The aftermath, the trauma of what happened never really left them. How could it? Your home, the place that is supposed to be the safest place in the world, had been violated. Your family had been threatened at gunpoint. Your children had been terrified in a way no parent should ever have to witness. In the years that followed, the family changed. The children grew up and moved away, not just to different cities, but to different countries. A kind of dispersal that I don't think was entirely unconnected to what happened that day. Some things shake a family's sense of safety so fundamentally that you can't rebuild it in the same place.
So tell us why you feel this true crime story belongs in the Fraud Files podcast.
Well, on the surface, this is an armed robbery. Yes, it is. It's a serious, violent crime, and I want to be clear about that. But at its core, at the very mechanism that made it work, this is an impersonation crime. A fraud, if you like, a deception. The men who came that day to the door committed an act of deception before they committed an act of robbery. They constructed a false identity, the most powerful false identity available to them, and they used it as a key. The violence came second. The fraud, the deception came first. And that's a pattern worth understanding, because it appears far more often than people realize. Not always with firearms, and not always in homes. People impersonate police officers, council officials, utility workers, bank inspectors, charity collectors. They put on a uniform, they put on a guise, literally or metaphorically. That signals authority and legitimacy. And then they rely on something deeply human, our tendency to comply with authority, to open the door, to let people in, to cooperate. It's the same psychological mechanism that makes phone scammers pretend to be from the tax authority, or email fraudsters pose as your bank. The costume changes. The con is the same. The disguise is the key.
Edward, before we close, there's something about this crime that keeps coming back to me. These weren't just criminals. They were psychologists, in a way. They understood something fundamental about human nature.
Exactly. And that's what I want to convey. Because across every fraud I've encountered in my career, the real estate schemes, the financial misappropriations, the elaborate cons, they all rely on the same thing. Deception masquerading as truth. Distraction masquerading as normality.
The uniform in this case.
The uniform, yes, but it goes deeper than that. Magicians and mentalists understand something that criminals exploit ruthlessly. They know that when our minds encounter authority, there is trust, instinctively. We see a uniform, we see official-looking people, and before conscious thought kicks in, we've already made a decision. We've already opened the door.
So knowing these tactics exist doesn't necessarily protect you?
It helps, but here's the uncomfortable truth. Deception works because it's designed to bypass rational thinking. A sophisticated criminal, and these people are sophisticated, understand human psychology better than most people realize. They know which buttons to push. They know what will make you hesitate just long enough for them to act.
So what can people do?
Be aware that it exists. Understand that criminals study psychology the way magicians do. And perhaps most importantly, in that moment of hesitation, that instinct that something doesn't feel right, listen to it. Because by the time you've consciously become aware that something is wrong, a very clever person may have already made their move.
So what thoughts do you want to leave our podcast listeners with today? What is the moral of the story, if you know what I mean?
What happened to that family that day was a crime in every sense of the word. And I hope that by telling their story without names, with their privacy intact, something useful comes out of it. A lesson for others, an awareness, a reminder. Let me finish by saying this. Trust is not weakness, but it can be exploited. And the people who exploit it most effectively are the ones who understand exactly which doors trust will open.
Next time on Fraud Files, in an episode entitled The Hand in the Cookie Jar, a teenage girl systematically steals from her younger sister's bank account. But this real story is more than just theft. It's about family betrayal and the psychology of why young people commit fraud. Until next time. Please get in touch with us and let us know about your experiences of frauds and scams and any questions you would like us to answer and discuss on future episodes. info@fraud-files.com.
Fraud Files is produced by Rock Solid Pods in association with the Podhouse Productions. Fraud Files is available on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, and wherever you get your podcasts.